What is a Mennonite? We probably had more rules of what not to do.
There was a big, broad range of different types of Mennonites, from the very conservative, which are what we would refer to today as the Old Order, which were the horse and buggy kind of Mennonites, and that's often what people think of today when they hear the word Mennonite. And so in Old Order Mennonite circles, certainly there would be some restrictions as far as very limited as far as what they would be able to do and to be involved with in their community. And then there's the progressive end, which was the church that I grew up in, and I say was no different. But the Mennonite community would maybe refer to, as I mentioned, people that had a common interest. In this case, it was the Mennonite faith. And that was what kept them together as a community. And their faith, they had specific beliefs as far as what it meant to be a follower of Christ, and in simple words today, the things that they did and didn't do.
Like going to movies would have been wrong, which I didn't do, and dancing would have been considered wrong. Playing cards even was considered wrong. Drinking. Smoking was wrong. Still is. but in those days it wasn't the health conscious fact of smoking. It was just that smoking was considered worldly and you shouldn't do it.
Okay. The name Brubaker comes from originally Brugbacher, and that refers to, the Brug is bridge and Bach is stream. So it was the bridge over the stream, and this came from a small area south of Zurich in Switzerland. And during that time in the 1500s, 1600s, they were persecuted for their faith, and they then migrated to Pennsylvania. 100 years later, they were running out of land. They were farm people by background and profession, and they were running out of land to be able to purchase there, and they had an opportunity to move to southern Ontario, and then came to Ontario looking for more land and cheap land.
From what I understand, my family came from Switzerland. Some people from Alsace-Lorraine were wanting some help with farming. My ancestors moved to Alsace-Lorraine. It's in France. Then they came directly from France to Waterloo County. I felt I had a pretty good life. We attended a church where I got to know everybody, and it was a fairly large church, I guess, about 200 people. I had a lot of friends there, and we would visit back and forth.
Growing up was centered around the farm, and the activities really centered around the farm and agricultural associations and organizations and church. And that was really the two areas was the focus of my life as far as growing up, was centered around the farm and the church.
I went to a public school in New Hamburg, and I really didn't feel that much different from other kids. I had friends who were not Mennonites. The only difference was that at that time I was not allowed to cut my hair, and I wanted curls, but I couldn't have them.
When you're growing up, you really don't often don't think about what some of the other options might even be. And so I can say that I enjoyed it. I enjoyed living on the farm and all that entailed. And so I can say that I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was happy. It was fine. It was fine. We had a river running through the farm. I often used to like to go down to the river, and I had a younger brother, and we'd go down there and see if we could find different colored rocks. It was very exciting, you know. The reason we left Waterloo County was because when I married my husband, he lived near Kitchener, and he went to a church in Waterloo, Ontario, and I went to a church between New Hamburg and Caeden, and our church was more of a country church yet, and we were not quite as progressive as his church. And I wanted to wear a veil when I was married, so we decided to get married in his church because my parents didn't really want me to be the first one to wear a veil in the church I went to. So we got married there, and then we lived in Kitchener for about a year. And then we, because of my husband's work, we were transferred to Schaumburg, Ontario.
I guess it's not, I didn't leave the Mennonite community per se. I went into agricultural sales, and the first company that I was with, Ralston Purina Company, I started in the Hamilton area and then came to the Kitchener area and then was transferred to Peel and Simcoe counties and settled in Barrie. And so really it was my work that took me out of the Mennonite community, if we want to call Kitchener that. And so it wasn't really that I left the faith, as it was that my work is what really necessitated moving from the area. And there was not, in the Barrie area, was not a Mennonite church. And so we didn't have an opportunity to stay with the faith. And so we branched out into another Protestant group and continued to worship in that way.
At this point, I wouldn't say that there's a lot I miss because we've been here now for over 50 years. I think at the time it was it was a big adjustment. It was hard to leave my family because they were 100 miles away, and we did not have we could not text, and even phone calls were expensive, and they just weren't done as often as we can text. So that part was hard.
Within the Mennonite group, in our group, there was a close bond in a sense, as far as the friendships and associations that you made within that group, and they tended to be a fairly close because everybody knew each other through their different family connections and church connections, that there was awareness that was sort of certainly different than what you find in other communities. There is an attachment as far as the area that you grew up in, as far as you know, your roots, I guess, and you think of that, and there's a fondness for that, but I can't say that I really miss it. We put our roots down here.
I would say that we're happy here, and I at this point, I can't say that I really miss it.